Red Skelton, and then The Life of Riley. Good night.
This is NBC, the National Broadcasting Company.
We appreciate you spending your time with us. Classic Radio JAR101.
Stay tuned now for Robert Young starring in Father Knows Best, which follows this listening reminder. Tomorrow evening on the NBC Radio Network, you'll enjoy the Bob Hope Show as film star Tyrone Power joins the program as special guest in an hilarious takeoff on a motion picture. As well as guest Tyrone Power, the Bob Hope Show will feature singing star Margaret Whiting and the music of Les Brown's Band of Renown. Later tomorrow evening, listen to the scintillating Phil Harris and Alice Faye Show, a riot of laughs from beginning to end. Listen and laugh tomorrow evening when it's time for both the Bob Hope Show and the Phil Harris Alice Faye Show. And now, hear Father Knows Best on NBC.
Now listen to Father Knows Best, transcribed starring Robert Young as Father. Welcome to Springfield and another half-hour visit with the folks in the white frame house on Maple Street. Sit back and enjoy life with the Andersons. Kathy, Bud, Betty, Margaret, and Jim, as the head of this typical American household, again sets out to prove that Father knows best. There was a good bit of excitement and no little dismay stirred up at the white frame house on Maple Street at noon today. On the surface, things seemed fairly normal and peaceful. About the only indication of anything out of the ordinary was expressed in a casual remark of Jim's as he entered the kitchen. Like this.
Hello, honey. What's the matter with Bud?
With Bud?
He's out in front, leaning against the mailbox, staring off into space.
Oh, I didn't even know he was home from school yet.
The strange thing is that he didn't budge an inch when I said lunch was probably ready.
That is strange. Honey, would you fill the water glasses? The pitcher's right there.
Oh, yeah, okay. Usually when I mention the word food to Bud, I quickly jump to one side so as not to get caught in a stampede.
Well, I wish he'd come in and eat. Everything's ready. Betty? Kathy?
Bud mumbled something about waiting for the mail carrier. I wonder what crazy thing he's sent in for this time. And how much it's going to cost me.
Betty? Kathy, lunch.
Wouldn't be so bad if he didn't always have everything sent COD. Sometimes I think COD stands for Clobber Old Dad.
Oh, and that reminds me. I sent your old leather chair. It won't cost much.
You did what?
Well, it was all sunken down in the middle.
Margaret, I spent 20 years getting that chair to fit me. And now, just when it's getting nicely broken in...
Broken down, you mean. It was a disgrace. You'll have to tell me one thing, though. Do you want it done in brown again, or would you like red leather this time?
Well, if it has to be done, I've always sort of liked the idea of red leather.
Oh, that's good, because that's what I told him to do.
Oh, you did?
Well, as long as this is your chair, I want you to be happy with it. Betty?
Don't scream, Mother. I'm coming. But don't fix much lunch for me. I'm getting so fat I'm positively, hello, Father, ugly.
I wish you wouldn't refer to me as Father Ugly. What makes you think you're fat?
Well, my stars, I've gone up from 111 pounds to 113.
Horrors. We'll have to widen the doorways so you can get through.
What's Kathy doing?
Well, I can tell you, but you'll never in the world believe it.
With her, I'd believe anything.
She's upstairs cleaning Bud's room for him.
Cleaning Bud's room?
I withdraw my statement.
She actually is. I mean, actually.
What's going on around here, anyway? Bud turning down food, Kathy cleaning his room. Strange things are happening.
She says Bud's paying her for it.
Now I've heard everything. Maybe I should have stayed in town until things blow over.
Well, both of those children had better get in here and eat, or they'll never make it back to school in time. Kathy?
I'm coming. Oh, don't give me any of that salad, Mother. The dressing's fattening.
Oh, Piffle. Eat what's on your plate. I'm not running a restaurant. Hurry up, Kathy.
I'm coming.
Things are
Hi,
happening.
Daddy.
Hello, kitten. You sound pretty cheerful today.
I ought to. I'm getting rich.
Well, good. I'm glad we've got one wealthy member in this family.
Well, both of those
How much is Bud paying you? All the bubble gum you can chew?
Heck no. $1 a week. Oh, don't
$1?
give me any of that salad, Mother.
My
The
gosh, he
dressing's
doesn't make a
fattening.
whole lot more than that himself. What does that drugstore job pay him? $2 or $3 a week?
I don't know. If you ask me, he's missing a few of his marbles.
Well, I wish he'd come in before he misses his lunch, too.
Kitten, are you sure Bud's paying you $1?
Yep. Pass the jelly, Betty.
You must know where the body's buried.
Huh? How did you talk Bud into this dollar deal? I didn't talk him into it. It was his idea.
Are you sure?
Uh-huh. He said he needed to keep out of a higher income tax bracket.
That he should worry about.
Betty, how about a cinnamon roll?
Don't you realize that each one of those rolls is simply and utterly crammed full of carbohydrates?
Really? I thought those were raisins.
Father, please.
Hey, Mom, what time does that darn mailman get here anyway?
Maybe he's already been here.
And didn't leave anything?
Could be. Better sit down and eat.
No, I'm not hungry. Just give me a couple of those rolls and some ham and potato salad and beans and jelly and stuff.
The poor kid hasn't got any appetite at all.
Where's my $1, Bud?
I can't give it to you yet. I'd like some milk, please.
I got your room all clean, and I want my $1.
You'll get it as soon as my money comes in.
As soon as what money comes in?
From the government. Those watermelon pickles there, I'll try a couple.
From the government?
No wonder they can't get the budget balanced. I want my $1, Bud.
Look, Shrimp, if you don't pipe down, I won't let you talk on the tape recorder.
What tape recorder?
Well, I haven't got it yet. I just sent in for it a couple of days ago.
Just a minute, Bud. How are you getting all this money? Exactly what kind of an arrangement do you have with the government?
Well, you see, Claude Mesner and I
might have known Claude was mixed up in this some way.
Claude and I got to talking about income tax, and Claude said that I'd have to start making out an income tax thing now that I'm working steady at the drugstore.
I see.
You don't have to file an income tax return, stupid.
I'm working, aren't I? I've got income, haven't I?
What income? Those $2 or $3 you get for burning toasted cheese sandwiches at the drugstore?
Wait, let's hear Bud's story. This intrigues me.
Well,
I'll gladly listen to anyone who's got a system whereby the government pays you instead of you paying them.
Well,
I just wish you'd brought this up before March 15th. I could have used it.
Well, the way I
Where's
figure...
my $1?
Will you pipe down?
Oh, turn blue. Look, Sonny boy, this is going to be quite a shock to you. But the income tax is something you have to pay, not get.
Not the way Claude figures it.
I may have been misjudging this boy. Go on.
According to Claude, I ought to get a refund of... Well, wait a minute. I got the blank in my pocket here.
I'd love to see it.
It's kind of wrinkled up. Where are we now? Oh, yeah, right here. I get a refund of $1,071.28.
What? I'm going to raise my price to $2.
I told Claude I thought that was awful high, but he said as long as I have it coming, I might as well take it.
Just how did Claude arrive at that figure?
Well, he just worked it out the regular way. Enter line 6 on line X and subtract line 2 and all that.
I know, but exactly how did Claude get that figure? That's what I want to know.
He ate too many starches.
All right. You can save that for the sophomore spring follies. Let's see that blank, Bud.
Well, Claude's got it all worked out. See, here's drugstore income here. $32.90. That includes tips.
I see.
Claude says they can be rough on you if you cheat on your tips.
He's right.
Then here's that $100 savings bond Aunt Mattie gave me for Christmas.
You put that under income?
Well, it came in.
Uh-huh. What's this item here, Bud? Loss from storm, $298.
Oh, that's my baseball mitt. I lost it in a storm.
Oh, I see.
Never did find that thing. Anyway, my net income comes to $128.28. See that?
Yeah?
Now, over here, I put myself down for an exemption. And right here, I put Kathy down as a dependent.
Kathy?
Oh, boy, I'm a dependent.
Don't I know it?
Now then, we turn back over
Wait
here.
a minute. How do you figure that you can claim Kathy as a dependent?
Well, she's dependent on me for her salary. That's why I hired her. It was Claude's idea.
I don't doubt that at all.
He pointed out that even though it cost me a little money, it was worth several $100 to me in the long run.
I'm going to raise my price to $3.
Don't start getting grabby, or I'll drop you as a dependent.
Let's see now. With 2 exemptions, that's $1,200.
Yeah, that's the way Claude has it. Right there, see?
Mm-hmm. And your net income is only $128.72, which leaves a difference of $1,071.28.
Right.
Now you haven't figured any actual tax here.
Well, of course not. I shouldn't have to pay tax on money they owe me.
Well, no, I guess you're right.
Do they send that money in cash or check?
I don't know. They've never sent me any.
Daddy, wouldn't you eat just a little something? An apple or a glass of milk?
Oh, I haven't time now, Mother. I've got to get back to school early this noon. I've decided I'll settle for 35 cents cash.
Look, I can't change it now. It'll throw my whole income tax off.
Well, how soon will I get it?
As soon as the mailman brings it. I'll go out and check him again.
Wait a minute, Bud. There's a few things you ought to know about income tax. And this is a good time to learn them.
Claude told me everything.
Oh, sure. In the first place, even if you were supposed to file a return...
But I am supposed to.
No, you're not. You didn't make $600.
I will when you add in my $1,000 refund.
You can't count that. But even if you were supposed to, and even if it was correct, which it isn't...
What?
You couldn't get a refund without first sending it in.
But I did send it in.
And in the second place, you can't list Kathy as a dependent... Even if you were supposed to file... What did you say?
But I am supposed to.
You sent it in?
Sure.
You actually sent it in?
Yeah. To the District Director of Internal Revenue.
Oh, no.
Isn't that the right place?
Oh, Bud, why don't you check with me before you do these things?
Wouldn't it be funny if they sent him that refund?
Margaret, this is no laughing matter. Do you realize his name is the same as mine? Wait a minute. Did you sign it as Bud Anderson?
Of course not. James C. Anderson.
Oh, me. Well, did you put the junior on?
Oh, Claude thought I ought to leave that off. Sounded too kiddish.
Hooray for Claude.
Oh, Jim, what are you so worried about? They can see that it's all a mistake.
Sure, but it's going to be a pretty suspicious-looking kind of a mistake. They'll get 2 returns from James C. Anderson, both the same address, both claiming Kathy as a dependent, both claiming James as an exemption, and one of them asking for a $1,000 refund.
Well, you can explain it all, can't you?
Sure, but are they going to believe it? They're checking everything that looks the least bit suspicious now.
Well, I think you're just making a mountain out of a moleskin. Nothing will come of it.
Oh, no?
Gosh, Dad, you don't think they'll throw me in jail, do you?
No, of course not. But all the red tape I'll have to go through explaining this.
Kathy, go see who that is.
Okay.
Gosh, what am I going to do when my tape recorder gets here?
Just send it back. And after this, don't send in for any more things until you've got the money to pay for it.
Well, I thought I would have.
And don't send in for anything until after you've checked with me.
I just hope I don't get arrested.
You won't, Bud.
Well, that's what they get all the big gangsters on, income tax.
Well, you're not a gangster.
I hope Claude doesn't sue me. What am I going to do when
Why
my
should he
sister
sue you?
gets here? I promised him $10 for making out my income tax.
$10?
Well, sure, you pay a man to do yours, don't you?
Well, yes, but...
How much do you pay him?
25, but
You ought to
he...
get Claude and save $15.
Yes, kitten?
There's a man here. He wants to see you.
See me? Who is it?
I don't know. He said he wanted to ask you something about your tax.
Tax? Oh, no, Margaret, he's here already. Oops, Bud.
Bud, come back here. Don't run down in the... Bud!
Act 2 of Father Knows Best in just a moment. 1 week from tonight, all of Hollywood's most glamorous personalities will gather for the fabulous Academy Award presentations of the motion picture industry. And NBC will be on hand to bring you a complete and exclusive report of the proceedings of the 26th annual presentation of the Academy Awards. You'll hear Donald O'Connor as master of ceremonies of the presentations. You'll hear the 5 nominated songs sung by your favorite singers. You'll hear the acceptance speeches of the Oscar winners. Tune to NBC next Thursday evening for the exclusive NBC broadcast of the Academy Awards. Who will win the Oscars? Listen next Thursday on this NBC station and learn the answer to that question.
Well, it looks as though the long arm of the Internal Revenue Department has found its way into the white frame house on Maple Street. Right now, James Jr., who filled out an income tax form in a fairly unorthodox manner, has taken refuge in the basement, while James Sr. prepares to go into the living room and talk to the man who has come to see him about his tax. Like this.
Well, dear, you can't keep the man waiting all night. Go in there and talk to him.
I'm going. I just want to, organize my thoughts. Make a good presentation of all this.
All you have to do is just tell the truth.
I know, but in this case, the truth just sounds like a flimsy alibi for a clumsy try at getting away with something.
Oh, it does not. You're just building this up in your own mind. You haven't done anything wrong.
I know that, Margaret. I know that. But it's a funny thing. I almost feel like I have. And I'm afraid I'm going to go in there acting suspicious.
You better go, Daddy. The man said he was in a hurry.
Okay. Where's the copy of that income tax blank that Bud sent in?
I think Bud took it down to the basement with him.
Well, would you get it for me? It might be a good idea to send Bud in there, too. One look at Bud will explain this mix-up quicker than anything I can say.
All right, I'll get Bud. You go in there and start talking.
Okay.
Can I come too, Daddy?
No, you wait there.
See if you can get my dollar from him.
Uh-huh. Well, how do you do, sir?
How do you do? Are you Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
I hate to bother you at lunchtime.
Oh, that's all right. Perfectly all right.
Well, I know it's pretty hard to catch you fellows, so
Catch? I wasn't planning on running away.
Oh, I know that. What I meant was...
Actually, there's a simple explanation to this, Mr.
Haggerty. I think I have one of my cards here.
Never mind. This whole thing is really a pretty funny story.
Oh?
Yes, you see, a young friend of my son's, Claude Messner, appointed himself as my son's personal business manager.
Oh, yes. Now then, Mr. Anderson, about your tax.
Well, that's what I'm coming to.
Oh?
This Claude filled out the blank, and the way he figured... Well, wait, I can explain this better by showing you the blank. I've got a copy of it. I'll go get it.
Well, look, Mr. Anderson...
Don't worry, I'll be back. I'm not running away.
I know, but
As a matter of fact, I want you to meet Bud, because actually he's more concerned with this than I am.
Oh, he is? I thought you were the one
No,
who...
you see, there are 2 James C. Andersons, Jr. and Senior. That's the whole trouble. I'll be right back.
Well, all right, but I wish you'd hurry.
Mother, I forgot my purse. Do you know where I left... Oh, excuse me. I didn't know anyone was here.
It's quite all right.
Does anyone know you're here?
Oh, yes, I was just talking to Mr. Anderson. I didn't mean to make so much fuss. I just wanted to talk to someone about the chair.
Oh, you mean the leather chair we're having done over?
Yes, I just wanted to know what kind of tax you want it decorated with. Yes, there were bronze-headed ones on it before, but I think brass would look better with the red leather.
Well, you'll have to ask Father.
I could have phoned, but I was in the neighborhood, and I thought you could get a better idea if you could see the tax yourself.
Yes, well, I'm sure Father will be right. Oh, there's my purse. Look, mister, I'm in a hurry. Would you give Father these letters? They just came.
Well, yes, all right.
Thanks, just load. You're a doll.
Come on, Bud. He's not going to arrest you.
Are you sure?
Of course I'm sure. Well, here we are, Mr. Haggerty. Sorry to have kept you waiting.
Yes,
This is my son, James Jr.
Oh, yes. So this is the young man who's going to get the chair, eh?
What?
Bud, come back here.
What's the matter with him?
I'm afraid your little joke was too much for him.
What little joke?
About the chair. He's quite emotionally upset over this whole deal.
He must be an extremely delicate child.
Well, I wouldn't say that. You should see him eat sometime.
Well, now, let's get this straight. Just which one of you is getting the chair? Your wife told me it was your leather chair, and then you said you wanted to call your son because he was more concerned with it.
Wait a minute. What did you say, leather chair?
Yes, certainly. I'm not in the wrong house, am I?
You're the one who's redoing our leather chair?
Well, certainly. Who did you think I was?
You'd be surprised.
Well, I'm sorry this has gotten so complicated. I merely dropped by to ask you whether you want it decorated with bronze or brass tacks.
Tax? Mr. Haggerty, excuse me for laughing, but we thought you were from the Bureau of Internal Revenue.
Internal Revenue?
It's too long a story to explain, but on account of you, my son is probably holed up in the darkest corner of the basement, believing he's a fugitive from justice.
Very amusing. Well, now, how about it? Do you want bronze or brass?
What's that?
Do you want bronze or brass tacks?
Yeah, that'll be fine.
What will?
Sure. Oh, you don't know what a relief this will be to Bud. Anything else you want to get straightened out about the chair, Mr. Haggerty?
No. No, I've got all the information I'm going to get. I can see that.
Well, fine. Nice to have met you.
Yes. Here's your mail. Your daughter handed it to me.
Oh, fine. Thank you. Goodbye, Mr. Haggerty.
Goodbye, Mr. Anderson.
Margaret! Margaret!
Yes, dear?
Was that a good joke on us? That wasn't an income tax man. That was the furniture man.
Mr. Haggerty, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, I couldn't imagine what was going on in here. Bud shot out of here looking white as a ghost. He called Claude on the phone and told him he'd better get out of town.
Oh, no. Where's Bud now?
I don't know. He ran out the back door.
Well, I hope he hasn't gone out of town, too.
He left without paying me my dollar.
Look, kitten, you'd better just write that off as a bad debt.
But he promised it to me.
Well, I'll pay it to you this time. But after this, don't make any more deals with Bud unless you check with me first.
Would you like your room cleaned for $1?
No, thanks.
You can use me as a dependent.
I'd rather not hear any more about that.
Dad, is the coast clear?
Huh? Oh, hi, Bud. Come on in.
I saw him leave. What happened? Do you think we've got a chance, Dad?
Oh, sure. I took care of that, baby. I told him off, but good. Of course, we might have to slip down to Mexico, lay low for a few months.
Mexico?
He's just kidding you, Bud. That man was just here to see about recovering your father's leather chair.
Leather chair?
Mm-hmm.
Is that the chair he was talking about?
That's all it was, Bud.
Jumping catfish. Boy, what a relief.
What do you have there, Jim? Some mail?
Huh? Oh, yeah. I guess Betty brought it in. Let's see. Here's one for you, Bud. From the Ajax mail order house.
Oh, that's about my tape recorder.
And this one is... Oh, my gosh. This is from the Internal Revenue Office.
Huh?
I was just thinking you still don't have that little problem solved.
Dad, how far is it to Mexico?
Before Daddy goes anyplace, I want my money first.
Well, open the letter and see what it says, Jim, before you start building this up into another big thing.
Yeah, you're right.
What's it say, Dad?
Well, wait till I look.
What's in your letter, Bud?
Oh, I forgot to look.
Well, I'll be darned.
Well, what does the Director of Internal Revenue say, dear? Well, what does he say?
He says, please send me COD 1 number 602 tape recorder.
What?
Bud sent the order to them by mistake.
But what about the income blank?
I just got it back. I must have sent it to the Ajax mail order house.
Dear, if I may quote the children, this is sure a crazy mixed-up house.
The Andersons will be back in just a moment. Again, let me remind you about the exclusive NBC radio broadcast of the Academy Awards next Thursday evening. Your host will be motion picture star Richard Carlson, and he'll describe this fabulous night of nights as the spectacle unfolds. On stage in Hollywood, the NBC microphones will pick up the voices of the stars all America loves as they present golden Oscars to 25 winners. And from New York and Philadelphia, you'll hear the voices of winners who may be in those cities. Only once each year is so much talent gathered together for one broadcast. Hear the excitement, tension, and surprises of the Academy Awards ceremonies next Thursday evening on this same NBC station.
Well, at last, the hectic noon hour is over. All the mistakes that were made finally neutralized each other, and the children are now on their way back to school. And Jim is about to depart for the office. Like this.
Well, I can get back to work now and get a little rest.
Well, we certainly had a comedy of errors going full blast here.
I don't see how Bud can get so many things mixed up so completely. He must practice nights.
Well, he's a boy.
I don't know where he gets that ability. Certainly not from me. Well, I'd better be going.
Oh, wait a minute, dear. That might be for you.
I hope not.
Hello? Yes, that's right. Oh? Oh, I see. Well, just a minute. I'll ask him. Dear, this is about your tax.
Tell him to put the brass-headed ones in.
No. This is the Internal Revenue Office.
What? My gosh, what have I done now?
They want you to drop by there and pay them some more money.
More money?
Mm-hmm. When you sent in your return, you apparently enclosed that letter I asked you to mail to Aunt Mattie.
Huh?
They put a stamp on it, so you owe them 3 cents.
Join us again next week when we'll be back with Father Knows Best, starring Robert Young as Jim Anderson. Father Knows Best is an NBC Radio Network production in cooperation with Cavalier Enterprises. In our cast were Ted Donaldson as Bud, Gene Vanderpyle, Rhoda Williams, Helen Strome, and Parley Bale. Father Knows Best is based on characters created by Ed James, written by Paul West and Roswell Rogers, directed by Arthur Jacobson, and transcribed in Hollywood. This is Bill Foreman speaking.
Play Truth or Consequences with Ralph Edwards on the NBC Radio Network.
JAR101. Brooks, starring Eve Arden. Well, most rivalries between school teachers are restricted to working hours, but the one between Armis Brooks of Madison High School and Daisy Enright extends into their personal lives. In fact, to see these two English teachers engaged in one of their frequent verbal tiffs, a casual observer might think that either one would cheerfully cut the other's throat for a nickel. But this isn't so.
No, indeed. I'd give 4 cents change. And after what happened this past week, I might not even take the penny. It all started last Friday morning. I was in my room packing a suitcase for a little weekend trip, and my landlady was helping me. Mrs. Davis, Mr. Boynton's going to Eagle Springs for the weekend, so I thought it was only logical for me to go to the same place.
Does he know you're going?
Nobody knows.
Why not?
Security reasons. I want to spend these few days with Mr. Boynton alone, and if Daisy Enright finds out our destination, that little dream is done for.
You mean she'd go up to Eagle Springs, too?
On her jet broom. She's giving me some real competition lately. She has a certain way with men that just seems to make them do whatever she wants them to. Why, even Mr. Conklin's partial to her.
That's nothing new. I've known for a long time that she's the principal's pet.
Well, I wish he'd keep her on a leash. The minute there's a chance to make a bit of extra money around school, she's the first one to get a crack at it. He even put her in charge of the new switchboard we had installed last week.
But doesn't that require an experienced telephone operator?
They're pretty difficult to get right now, so she's filling in temporarily. She takes the board herself during her free period and appoints various other teachers to take over the rest of the time. What burns me up is the way she got the job, by telling Mr. Conklin she worked for the phone company when she was a girl. What a fish story that is. Oh, there's Walter Denton to drive me to school. Be right there, Walter.
Before you go, Connie, tell me, why do you think it's a fish story?
Because when she was a girl, the telephone hadn't been invented. Walter, please. There's no law that says we can't use all 4 tires going around a corner. Now, slow down a little.
1,000 pardons, dear teacher. Now, frankly, I'm barely conscious of the speed with which we are traversing this mundane sphere. It is only the corporeal Walter Denton who is restricted to the confines of this vehicle. The spiritual me is floating in the heavenly blue on silver wings.
Well, bail out, Cherub. I'm not ready for harp lessons. What's the reason for this pedestrian-destroying ecstasy?
It's Harriet Conklin, Miss Brooks. She's been treating me like an angel lately. Last night when her folks were out visiting, she even cooked dinner for me. Gosh, it was romantic.
What did you have?
Liver and onions.
Truly the food of love.
To be honest, I was so grateful I barely felt the heartburn. But all isn't beer and Skittles. As much as Harriet adores me, that's how much her father hates the sight of me.
Oh, don't tell me you're having trouble with Mr. Conklin again.
Oh, no more than usual. Now, I wrote an editorial in the Monitor a couple of days ago that Mr. Conklin didn't agree with. You see, in it, I said I was opposed to hiring a permanent substitute for one of our German teachers.
Which one?
Wolfgang Himmelstas. He's the nice old fellow who's been sick for the past week.
Oh, I wouldn't know. Wolfgang isn't one of my intimates at school.
Well, the other teachers have been sharing his duties so far, but I heard that Mr. Conklin's looking for a younger teacher to take over his class. Now, that means when Mr. Himmelstas gets better, he won't have a job.
Well, it's nice of you to be so loyal to an old teacher, Walter.
Oh, I feel the same way about you, Miss Brooks, and I'd go to bat for you, too. That's why you've got to go to bat for Mr. Himmelstas.
Me?
Certainly. Now, how would you like it if you were a worn-out, old, lonely, broken-down bachelor?
I'm getting used to it. I mean, how can I help Mr. Himmelstas?
Well, by mentioning to Mr. Conklin that you don't think he should replace him. Will you, Miss Brooks? Will you do that for me and for all the kids who've grown so fond of Mr. Himmelstoss? Will you, Miss Brooks, huh? Will you, huh?
Well...
Boy, that's a relief. Well, now that you've promised, my mind's at ease. That's one thing about you, boy. Once you make a promise, a guy doesn't have to worry about a thing. He can rest assured that you'll keep your word or die in the attempt. Yes, sir.
Huh? Good morning, Harriet.
Oh, good morning, Miss Brooks. I have a message for you.
I know. Your father wants to see me in his office immediately.
No, Miss Enright wants to see you in the faculty room. This one on your left.
Well, if it isn't the mumps, it's the measles. Well, I might as well find out what's on her frightening little mind. I'll see you in class, Harriet.
Bye-bye, Miss Brooks.
Toodle. Miss Enright?
Oh, come in, darling. My, you're looking lovely this morning. I'm mad about that dress you're wearing. It does so much to bring out your natural lines.
Really?
Yes. Especially the ones around your eyes. Well, but then there's no time for chit-chat. Miss Brooks, we've got to sit down and have a real heart-to-heart talk.
All right. Borrow a heart and let's get started.
I'll ignore that remark because there's too much at stake to bicker. Now, we're both aware of the fact that we're interested in the same man. And each one of us has been keeping extremely close tabs on him. For instance, I heard that he's going to spend the weekend at Eagle Springs.
Eagle Springs? Mm-hmm. Well, now, who could have started such a ridiculous rumor?
Mr. Boynton told me himself.
He's the logical one to start it all.
I also have a hunch that we were both going to surprise him by showing up at the same place.
Why, Miss Enright, wherever did you get such a fantastic notion?
I've got my train ticket in a bag in my locker. Where are yours?
I'm picking them up after school. Well, suppose we did have the same idea.
Oh, don't you see, Miss Brooks, with such an elusive query, we've got to be more cagey. I'm sure that Mr. Boynton sees some good points in both of us, but the way we've been going about things, we're only hurting each other's chances.
Miss Enright, you may have something there.
Yes.
What do you suggest?
That one of us step out of the picture completely for a specified amount of time and leave the other a clear field.
How much time, for instance?
Well, how about a couple of months?
Fine. See you in January, Miss Enright.
Not so fast. We'll decide who's going to remove herself first in a sportsmanlike manner. Say by dealing a hand of cards.
A hand of cards?
Yes. You know, some of us play bridge during lunch hour, and I just happen to have a deck in my handbag. Do you have the nerve to go through with it?
Nerve? Sit down and deal, Miss Enright. What kind of a game shall we play?
Well, do you know poker?
I've heard of it.
Fine. Then I'll deal one hand of draw poker, and the loser agrees to stay away from Mr. Boynton for a period of 2 months, commencing at once, right?
Right.
Fine. All right. Here we are. Now, you care to cut the deck?
Run 'em.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There. Now, how many cards do you want, Miss Brooks?
Let's see. I'll take 4. How about you?
I'll play these. What have you got, Miss Brooks?
A pair of 10s.
Oh, no good. I've got 4 aces.
4 aces? Well, that's that.
Oh, I'm glad you're taking it like a good sport, Miss Brooks. May I walk to your class with you?
Sure, if you don't mind climbing 4 flights.
4 flights, but your classroom's on the first floor.
I know, but who ever heard of jumping from a first-floor window? I determined to live up to my bargain with Miss Enright and sever all relations with the bashful biologist. As I approached our usual table in the cafeteria at lunchtime, I resolved to get it over with as quickly and painlessly as possible. Mr. Boynton.
Yes?
Goodbye.
Goodbye. You're going somewhere, Miss Brooks?
Yes, out of your life. Goodbye.
Well, no, just a moment. What on earth are you talking about?
It's just that I got to thinking about our relationship, Mr. Boynton, and I've come to the conclusion that it's best for both of us if we don't see each other for a while.
But why, Miss Brooks? How did you come to that conclusion? I know. I did something.
When? Oh, no, Mr. Boynton, it's nothing you've done. It's not going to be easy, of course. We've had some memorable times together. Those exciting nights when we strolled through the zoo. Those long walks past the aquarium and those evenings under the stars. Just you and me in the planetarium. But now that I've made my decision, all that seems ages ago.
Look, Miss Brooks, I think we should talk this over. I haven't picked up my train ticket to Eagle Springs yet. I was going to phone in my reservation after school, but I don't have to go up there this weekend.
Oh, yes, you do, Mr. Boynton. If I'm going to be a good sport, you've got to go. This is goodbye. Please don't make it any harder.
If that's the way you really feel about it, I don't suppose...
That's the way I feel. Just give me one long, lingering kiss, and I'll go.
Kiss?
Okay, what's your next best offer? I just thought that since we've always been such good friends, we should part as good friends do.
Hmm? Well, I guess I could kiss you goodbye if you want to.
I want. Well, I'm all puckered, Mr. Boynton. Oh, eyes closed and puckered.
Cooling soup, Miss Brooks? Indeed. If you'll excuse me, sir, I've got to get some sherbet. I said I'd pick it up before it got cold. See you later, Miss Brooks.
He's a little nervous today.
Miss Brooks, what was the meaning of that hideous osculatory display I was about to witness?
I was just saying goodbye to Mr. Boynton, sir. He's going away, and
Goodbye? You looked like a sea lion about to play Yankee Doodle on a calliope. The idea of kissing in a public school cafeteria. Is that what the Board of Education pays you for, Miss Brooks?
If it is, they haven't been getting their money's worth.
Don't be insolent. To think that in one English department I should have two such extremes in teachers as Miss Enright and you. The one alert, calm, efficient. The other an emotional, mooning, lovesick cocker spaniel.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe it's just the way her ears flop down that make Miss Enright look that way.
You know whom I meant, Miss Brooks. Sometimes I don't know what I'd do without Miss Enright. In addition to her duties as an English teacher, she has recently taken over the operation of our new switchboard.
Yes, I know, sir. She's very clever.
Plus which, just a few moments ago, she solved another problem for me. She has suggested a teacher to take Mr. Himmelstoss's place.
But Mr. Himmelstoss is perfectly capable of taking his own place. I mean, when he gets better, he'll be completely well. That is, everybody's so attached to him, Mr. Conklin, and he's quite old.
That's just it. Miss Schmerzenfelder is young.
Well, I don't care how you... Miss Schmerzenfelder?
I'm phoning her this afternoon to make an appointment. Miss Enright speaks very highly of her. Now, stand aside, please. Your sentimental pleading cannot stay me from my rendezvous with some meatballs. And watch that fraternization, Miss Glad-Eye.
Yes, sir. Glad-Eye. I'll bet that Miss Schmerzenfelder walks with a goose step. It's just not fair that
Do you mind if I join you, Miss Brooks? I've been talking to myself, too, lately.
Sit down, Walter. What's your trouble?
You know, old Marblehead, Mr. Conklin's had me on cleanup detail during my free period. You know, it's usually pretty dull work, but I just found something quite interesting in a trash basket in the faculty room.
What is it?
Well, this deck of cards. See?
Well, those are the cards Miss Enright and I used this morning.
What? You played her with these? Oh, but this is a trick deck, Miss Brooks. She could clobber you with these.
She did clobber me. What do you mean by trick deck?
It's stacked. Did she beat you for much, Miss Brooks?
Just about 2 months of my life. But, Walter, I think I've got an idea. Excuse me, please.
Where are you going, Miss Brooks?
I'm going to see a floppy-eared spaniel about a man.
Well, you are being a good sport, Miss Brooks. This being my free period, I was about to take over the switchboard myself.
Oh, think nothing of it, Miss Enright. I'll be happy to take over for you. I know how rushed you must be, particularly if you want to make that 4:30 train.
Oh, yes, it's the only one up to Eagle Springs today. But you're sure you know how to handle a switchboard, Miss Brooks?
Miss Enright, I worked on the board of a summer resort for an entire summer when I was in my teens.
And you learned everything?
On a resort switchboard? That was the summer I grew up.
Well, I guess there's no sense in looking a gift horse in the mouth. Figuratively speaking, of course.
Oh, that's all right. Slip me the earphones and call me native dancer.
Well, very well. I'm off to the country. Remember now, I have quite a reputation for efficiency with Mr. Conklin.
Don't you worry about that, Miss Enright. I'll take care of your duties and your reputation. But good. This switchboard is a pretty complicated gadget. Thank goodness there haven't been any calls. Uh-oh. There goes one of the lights now. Oh, it's pretty. I guess I plugged this cord in under it. Madison High School?
Would you connect me with Harriet Conklin, please? She's in the home economics class.
I'd love to, Walter.
Miss Brooks, what are you doing there? Is Miss Enright at the switchboard?
Not unless she sneaked in under me. Now, you wanted the home economics class. I wonder which hole I plug in for that.
Don't you know?
Well, they all look alike to me. Oh, there's another call. Hold it, Walter. I'll have to get back to you. Madison High School?
Hello. Would you connect me with Miss Brooks, please?
Oh, hello, Mrs. Davis. This is Miss Brooks.
My, I got through to you fast. Whoever's on that switchboard must really know her business.
I'm on the switchboard. What can I do for you?
I just wanted to know whether or not I should...
Oh, excuse me a minute, Mrs. Davis. There's another call coming in. Hang on. Good afternoon, Madison High School.
Oh, good afternoon. Would you put me through to the railroad station, please? This is Mr. Boynton.
The railroad station, Mr. Boynton?
Yes. Is this Miss Brooks?
That's right.
Wasn't Miss Enright there?
Maybe I'd better stand up and look. No, sir. I'm in charge of the board now. I'll connect you with the station in one moment, as soon as I can disguise my voice.
Hello? Hello? Is this the railroad station?
It sure is, Doc. What can I do for you?
I'd like to reserve a ticket to Eagle Springs today.
Eagle Springs? Aren't any trains running to Eagle Springs today. It's snowed in. Goodbye. Now to get back to Mrs. Davis. Hello, Mrs. Davis?
No, this is Walter. Could I speak to Harriet, please?
Any day now, Walter. Hold it. Hello, Mrs. Davis?
Yes, dear. What I wanted to ask you...
Oh, just a moment, Mrs. Davis. There goes another light. Hello?
Oh, hello, Miss Brooks. This is Mr. Boynton. I didn't get that railroad ticket yet. Some nitwit at the station said Eagle Springs was snowed in. Would you try the Weather Bureau for me?
Oh, all right, Mr. Boynton, but you'll have to wait a moment.
Hello? Would you connect me with Walter Denton in shop class, please? This is Harriet Conklin.
Oh, hello, Harriet. This is Miss Brooks. Walter's been trying to get you.
Where is he?
Well, he's somewhere on this board. I'll try to plug you in. Zowie, 5 lights in a row. This board's beginning to look like a pinball machine. Hello?
Hello. Osgood Conklin speaking.
Tilt. How are you, Mr. Conklin? This is Miss Brooks.
On the switchboard? Has Miss Enright taken leave of her senses?
No, sir, just of Madison. She's gone away for the weekend, and I'm pitching in.
Well, I'm calling Miss Schmerzenfelder. Her number is Maine 8493.
Yes, sir, right away. Now, let's see, which hole do I plug for an outside line? I'll try this one. Hello?
Hello, Miss Brooks. Could I speak to Harriet, please?
Oh, didn't you get her, Walter?
No, he didn't get her. But we've been having a delightful conversation.
Who's we?
Walter, Mrs. Davis, and me, Miss Brooks.
Mr. Boynton, too? I must have put you all on the wrong line. Ah, here we are.
Confound it, Miss Brooks. Where's my number?
Well, Mr. Conklin, fancy meeting you again. I'll get Miss Schmerzenfelder for you right now, sir. If I can do a decent German accent. Oh, here's Miss Schmerzenfelder now, Mr. Conklin.
Hello, Miss Schmerzenfelder?
Yeah, this is Miss Schmerzenfelder. Who is das?
Das is Mr. This is Mr. Conklin, principal of Madison High School.
Oh, Herr Conklin. Yeah.
Yes. Well, I'm calling about that teaching position that's open in Madison's German department. Miss Enright recommended you in the highest possible terms.
Oh, danke schön. Yeah, I'm the best German teacher in the whole entire ganze Welt. That's the whole world to you. Daisy and I taught together in 2 or 3 high schools, you know.
2 or 3 high schools?
Yeah, the first principal was crazy about the way I taught. That wasn't the reason I was fired.
Fired?
I would still be there if he hadn't found the schnapps in the coat room.
You mean you'd been drinking?
Just a bissel between classes. But I give that all up, Mr. Conklin.
Oh, but what about your last position?
Oh, I wasn't canned on account of my teaching.
Then why did the principal let you go?
The silliest reason. Oh, the silliest reason. How was I to know he didn't like crap games in the elevator?
Oh, this is incredible. Miss Enright spoke of you so highly.
Yeah, it's too bad she couldn't say the same about you. What a temper she said you got. She said, du bist verrückt. That's nuts to you.
Miss Enright said that? Why, there isn't a word of truth in it. I'm essentially a very mild-mannered man. Anyone who knows me could vouch for that.
Of course they could, Osgood.
What's that? Is there someone else on this line?
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Conklin. I must have put Mrs. Davis on by mistake.
Oh, Gad, of all the stupid, idiotic teachers who...
Was ist das?
Not you, Miss Schmerzenfelder, no.
Miss Enright was right. Du bist verrückt. Auf Wiedersehen, Mr. Conklin.
No, Miss Schmerzenfelder. I'm talking about the other teacher on this line.
Well, I hardly think that's any way to talk about me, Mr. Conklin.
Boys, what are you doing on this line?
He's waiting to speak to Harriet. Oh, no, that was Mrs. Davis.
What?
Could I speak to Harriet, please, Miss Brooks?
I knew there was someone waiting to speak to her.
Here I am, Walter, dear.
What do you know? They finally got together.
Miss Brooks, I don't know who is more to blame for this fiasco, you or Miss Enright. I'll deal with her when I see her. But how do you propose to straighten out the tangle you've gotten this switchboard into?
Don't worry, Mr. Conklin. I've got one more line that's still free, and I know just what I'm going to do with it.
What?
Hang myself. What else?
And now, here's the star of our show, Eve Arden.
Well, we finally got our lines untangled, though I'm still not sure how.
Miss Brooks, starring Eve Arden, transcribed, was produced and directed by Larry Burns, written by Arthur Olsberg and Al Lewis, with the music of Lud Gluskin. Mr. Conklin was played by Gail Gordon. Others in tonight's cast were Jane Morgan, Dick Crenna, Bob Rockwell, Gloria McMillan, and Mary Jane Croft.
Next week at this same time and over this same station, Eve Arden, in the role of Madison High School's favorite English teacher, Miss Brooks, will again call the student body together. Don't you be absent. Our Miss Brooks is presented each week through the worldwide facilities of the United States Armed Forces Radio and Television Service.
Hey, thanks for listening to Classic Radio JAR101.
Petri Wine brings you Basil Rathbone in the New Adventures of Sherlock Holmes. The Petri family that took time to bring you good wine, invite you to listen to Dr. Watson tell us another exciting adventure he shared with his old friend, that master detective, Sherlock Holmes. And say, if you'd like to try a new adventure in good eating, will you just make sure that your dinner tomorrow night includes a bottle of Petri California Burgundy. Petri Burgundy is the ideal wine with any kind of meat or meat dish. That Petri Burgundy is a hearty red wine, just as rich in flavor as it is in color. It's the perfect companion to a thick, juicy steak or a piping hot pot roast or a good hamburger. You know, that Petri Burgundy has a happy faculty of turning a simple meal like, say, a hamburger sandwich into a feast. Believe me, here is a wine that's clear, fragrant, and delicious. A wine that you can serve to your friends proudly. Petri Burgundy. Remember, the name Petri is the proudest name in the history of America's wines. And now let's join our good friend, Dr. Watson.
I'm out here on the patio, Mr. Bartell.
Well, I see you're making the most of a wonderful evening, Doctor.
Oh, yes, my boy. It's pleasant to sit out here on a summer's night with a good friend and a pipe, a bottle of wine. Help yourself to a glass and sit down.
Well, thank you, sir. All ready with tonight's new Sherlock Holmes adventure, Doctor?
Yes, and a strange story it is. It was in the autumn of 1899, Mr. Bartell, that I decided both as doctor and friend that Sherlock Holmes was in desperate need of a holiday.
He'd really been overdoing it, huh?
Oh, yes, my boy. It had been an unusually busy year, and at the time my story begins, Holmes was suffering from complete exhaustion. So, my boy, towards the end of October in that year, we found ourselves in the charming city of Kazanlak, capital of the small Balkan kingdom of Grozny. A few nights after our arrival, I remember Pavlu Krasnodar, Groznian Minister of Police, took us to hear the singing of a certain young Hungarian opera star, Miss Lily Rayner, who was then touring Europe. At our table was her fiancé, the charming young aristocrat Prince Stefano. And it was very easy to see as he sat there listening to the song that the boy was head over heels in love. It was a haunting melody that she sang, Mr. Bartell. I can almost hear it now. You're a very lucky man, Prince Stefano. Your fiancée's voice matches her beauty.
Oh, yes, Dr. Watson. I consider myself the most fortunate man in Grozny.
She has a magnificent voice, the finest singing I can recall since...
Since when, Mr. Holmes?
I was thinking of a prima donna of the Warsaw Opera who attained considerable success in London. Miss Irene Adler.
Oh, by George, yes. She was a criminal, one of the few that outwitted you, Holmes. Oh, that was a case that would have interested you, Mr. Krasnodar.
I'm familiar with it, my dear doctor. You are unusually solemn tonight, Krasnodar. Have a glass of wine, and I will bring Lily to our table, and we will toast our happiness.
I'm afraid I cannot drink to that toast, Prince Stefano.
Why not? Oh, I know why. You, the notorious lady killer of Grozny, are jealous. You're in love with Lily yourself.
Oh. Prince Stefano, I have sad news for you. I have come here tonight, but for one purpose. To arrest your fiancée.
Huh?
You're joking.
It is far from a joke. At my ministry, we have evidence, conclusive evidence, that Miss Lily Rayner is a spy.
Spy? Good Lord.
And the penalty for spying in Grozny?
That, my friend, is why I would drink no toast. In Grozny, the penalty for espionage is death.
Yes, I know, but Holmes, you must do something to save that girl. You can't just turn in for the night without trying to help her in some way. They might shoot her in the morning.
Krasnodar's no fool. Since he's made the arrest, obviously he has a watertight case against the girl.
I suppose so.
One last pipe.
You know, Holmes, I couldn't understand her fiancé's behavior. He didn't do a thing. Just stood there and let Krasnodar arrest the girl.
What could he have done? Krasnodar is commissioner of police. There was no point in arguing with him until the evidence had been examined.
I imagine the prince will try and pull some political strings. After all, Grozny...
Come in.
Oh, who's this now?
Oh, you wish to speak to me?
Mr. Sherlock Holmes, I've come to talk to you about my baby. My name is Martha Greget.
Your baby? Mr. Holmes doesn't...
Oh, my baby, she is 20 years old, and she is flaxen-haired and beautiful.
Oh, that's an entirely different matter. We'll be delighted to help you, delighted. Sit down, won't you?
On whose behalf have you come to me?
Poor Lily Rayner.
Lily Rayner? Well, that's the girl who's arrested tonight.
I am only her dresser. And yet I'm Martha Greget. I'm her mother and father. I have toured Europe with her ever since she left Vienna.
She sent you to me tonight, I suppose.
Yes, Mr. Holmes. She said you would understand.
What does she mean by that, I wonder?
She said that Mr. Holmes would take care that a talent like hers should not perish, just because she had broken a few laws.
In other words, she wishes me to establish her innocence in the same breath as she confesses her guilt. I'm afraid I don't take that sort of plant. Good night to you.
Mr. Holmes, Dr. Watson.
Krasnodar?
I am glad that you came to my office this morning. I can show you the proof of Miss Lily Rayner's guilt. As distinguished foreigners, I should like you to know that though the penalty for political crimes is swift and severe, we are most careful that the incriminating evidence is beyond question. You see these letters?
Yes.
We found them sewed into the bodies of her gown.
Oh, good gracious me.
They're a series of highly dangerous letters from Josip, the leader of the Revolutionary Party with whom she is obviously hand in glove. Here, you may examine them if you wish.
Right. Say, it looks like Greek to me.
My knowledge of the Groznian language is far from perfect, but these letters certainly seem to incriminate their owner beyond doubt.
You will observe that the letters have followed her to each of the cities in which she has been singing. All of them ask questions as to the military garrisons and the chances of a successful revolution. She has been a dangerous spy.
Yes, I can see that, sir. But even so, isn't the death penalty excessively severe, particularly for a woman?
Dr. Watson, the Balkan states are a hotbed of European intrigue. Our penalties must be severe, and we cannot make concessions to the sex of a culprit.
This man Josip, the writer of these letters, have you been able to find any trace of him?
None. If only we could. But we have never even seen the man. However, we are fortunate to trap his assistant and apparently the lady of his choice.
Lady of his choice? But she was engaged to Prince Stefano.
Undoubtedly a blind. In her home, we found an unsigned love letter in English. It was in the same handwriting as these letters from Josip.
Are you satisfied, Watson?
Well, I suppose.
Obviously, she's guilty. Well, there's no place for me in this affair, particularly when you consider that she made a virtual confession in sending her dresser to me last night.
I suppose you're right, but just the same. If you want to trap this man Josip, I should think you'd be wiser to hold the girl as a hostage. It might bring him on the scene if he's afraid she'll talk. If you hang her, you'll never find him.
Dr. Watson, in my country we found that prompt justice gets the best results. And for your edification, we do not hang in Grozny.
No?
The death penalty is exacted at the hands of a firing squad.
And when is the execution to take place?
You have timed your visit well, my friends. Please to step onto the balcony.
Oh, dear.
I think that answers your question, Mr. Holmes.
Great Scott. Against the wall, blindfolded, with a firing squad before her. It's Lily Rayner.
Groznian justice indeed moves swiftly, Mr. Krasnodar.
It has to, my friend. Capitano! Waspritov?
Great heaven, I can't watch this. I don't care what she's done. I don't want to see it.
Up! Two! First!
She's crumbled to the ground. Poor little thing.
What an artist.
Hard to see a woman executed even if she is a spy.
May all traitors to Grozny die as swiftly.
But what a loss. Her beautiful voice.
Yes, her beautiful voice. Shall we go in, gentlemen?
I can still see that poor girl as she crumbled before the firing squad.
So can I, old chap.
That's her song you're playing, isn't it?
Yes. The melody still haunts me. You blame me, don't you?
Blame you for what?
For not preventing her death.
Oh, of course I don't blame you, Holmes. The girl was guilty. Grosnian law prescribes the death penalty for her crime. After all, what could you have done about it?
Nothing. Absolutely nothing. And yet...
And yet what?
I wonder if she was right. I wonder if artistry such as hers isn't of greater value to humanity than spying in any cause.
It's not much good worrying about that now, is it? The girl's dead and buried.
Watson.
What's the matter, Holmes?
Did you hear that?
I hear what?
I can swear that I heard the dead girl's voice. She was singing a song to my accompaniment.
Oh, dear. Your nerves must be in a very bad state, Holmes. Hearing voices indeed. You'd better turn in for the night.
Perhaps. Well, it may be more my conscience than my nerves.
I'll give you a sleeping draught if you like.
No, my dear Shepard. I'm all right. It's funny, though. I could have sworn that... Oh, well.
Play some more of that tune, will you, Holmes? Great heavens!
Ah? You heard it this time, eh, Watson?
Of course I did. It was her voice. There's no mistaking it. Holmes, I don't believe in ghosts, and yet I could swear...
Listen.
Good Lord. It is her.
Do not let them go and punish the kill me.
Who are you? Where are you?
In the air about you. Avenge my death.
Strike a match,
Sherlock
Watson.
Holmes.
Strike a match. Yes. Light the gas.
Look. There in the moonlight, moving past the window. It's the figure of that girl that was shot to death.
A match, Watson. I'll guard the door.
There. Gas is lighted, but she's vanished, Holmes.
And not by means of this door. We're standing in front of it. And there's no other exit from the room.
Holmes, I don't like this. We're dabbling in the supernatural.
Stop trembling, Watson. Whatever the explanation for this may be, one thing at least I find quite fascinating.
And what's that?
It's the first time in my career that I ever had a ghost for a client.
Dr. Watson will tell us the rest of his story in just a second, so I'm just going to tell you about a wine that adds the perfect finishing touch to a good meal. Petri California Muscatel. With its sunshiny golden color and its full aroma, you just know Petri Muscatel is going to taste good. And it really does. The flavor of big, plump Muscat grapes picked when they're full to bursting with luscious juice. For the wine that everybody likes, serve Petri Muscatel. You know it's good if it's Petri. Well, Dr. Watson, so you had a ghostly visitor calling on you at the hotel that night, huh?
Yes, my boy, and I confess I was so badly shaken by the experience that I hardly slept a wink all night. Well, the next morning, after an early breakfast, Holmes and I located the proprietor of our hotel and began to question him as to the history of the building.
I've admired the architecture of this building ever since we came here. A house of this period would undoubtedly have been built with secret passages and staircases.
I confess that I know of one secret staircase there. There may well be others.
Indeed, and where's the one you know of?
Do you wish to explore it, gentlemen?
Oh, very much. My friend and I are most interested in such things.
Follow me, please. These stairs lead to our wine cellars. Thousands of feet have tramped up and down these steps. Only a select few know that behind this tapestry here... behind this tapestry, gentlemen, is apparently a solid wall. But the wall is not solid. You have a match, perhaps.
Oh, yes, of course. Here you are.
We keep a candle here in this niche for just such an occasion as this.
So, please hold back tapestry, sir.
Oh, I've got it.
Thank you. Now, let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4. The fourth brick up from the stair. I press it so, and...
Look, Holmes. Great Scott, a section of the wall swinging out.
It's closing a stairway behind it. Ingenious.
There, gentlemen. Allow me to give you the candle.
But aren't you going to lead the way?
No, sir. I'm not going to lead the way, thank you. I have owned this hotel for 32 years, and yet I have never explored this stairway.
Why, sir? Is it reputed to be haunted?
Yes, it is supposed to be haunted. The candle, gentlemen.
Thank you. I'm much obliged to you. Come on, Watson.
I shall wait here.
I don't think I care for this, Holmes. Frightfully dark in here. Damp and mouldy, too.
Look, Watson. Look here.
Where?
This landing.
Landing? Nothing but dust and cobwebs.
Closer, old chap. There's the faint imprint of a woman's heel here.
Oh, by George, yes. Shoes that have gone both up and down these stairs in the last 24 hours.
Exactly. And there's a reverse print over here. This, my dear chap, I think accounts for the appearance and disappearance of our visitor last night.
Yes, but Holmes, it was the singer, Lily Rayner. Yet we saw her shot yesterday morning.
Rubbish, Watson, rubbish. What have we to do with walking corpses? Come on, old fellow. Let's see where this stairway leads us to.
I know, but then what did we see if we didn't see a ghost last night?
That, my dear chap, is what we have to find out. Wait a minute. Staircase ends here. That's strange.
Yes, against a blank wall. That doesn't make sense.
And yet the entrance to this stairway was an apparent blank wall, too, remember? Let's see if the same formula will do the same trick here.
What was it? Oh, yes. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, 4 bricks up from the step. I press so and... Open sesame!
The wall swinging back again.
What do we see? Another tapestry. A tapestry that seems very familiar.
Well, I should say so. This hidden door leads into your very own bedroom.
Exactly, my dear chap. Now we know beyond doubt how the apparent ghost made her appearance last night.
Don't you suppose it must have been someone impersonating the dead girl?
That, my dear fellow, is a question that can only be answered by calling on her fiancé, Prince Stefano. Let's go over and see him at once, shall we? Prince Stefano, I'd just like to intrude upon your personal tragedy, but I must ask you a few questions.
Ask your questions.
Did your fiancée have a sister who may have resembled her?
No. She had no living relatives at all, Mr. Holmes.
Well, tell me this. Who inherits her estate, sir?
Her dresser. A faithful old woman by the name of Martha Gregor, who looked after her for some years.
I see. Did Miss Rayner have an understudy?
As a singer, she could have no understudy. She was irreplaceable.
You say as a singer. Was she also an actress?
Oh, but yes, Mr. Holmes.
Oh, really? How very unusual for an opera singer.
Quiet, Watson, please.
The first time I saw her was in Tosca. She was not another Bernard, but her performance was very promising one, considering her age. In my country, of course, she was not able to appear in anything but opera because she could not speak Russian.
She didn't speak Russian? Now I have the answer.
The answer?
Yes, to what?
To this entire story, from the arrest of your fiancée to certain strange visitations at my hotel last night.
What do you mean, Mr. Holmes?
If you come to my hotel room tonight, my dear Prince, I can safely promise to make the whole matter clear to you. And I dare go a little further. I think that I can even help you find consolation in your bereavement. Ladies and gentlemen, I can see that you wonder why Dr. Watson and I have asked you to come here to our hotel tonight.
As Minister of Police, I should be stupid if I did not realize that since your other two guests are the Prince Stefano and Martha Gregor, the dead girl's dresser, that this meeting has some bearing on the execution of Miss Lily Rayner.
I should prefer to say her murder.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you please, I should like to make my own position in this matter quite clear. 2 nights ago, you, Martha, came to me on behalf of Miss Lily Rayner to solicit my aid. I, convinced that she was guilty, refused that aid. Yesterday morning, she died before a firing squad. Last night, her ghost appeared to me here in this room and asked me to avenge her death.
Her ghost? What nonsense are you talking?
It would be no surprise to me if her poor murdered soul came back from the grave to ask for justice, sir.
I saw her, my good woman, almost as clearly as I see you all now.
I agree with Krasnodar. To talk of ghosts is beyond belief.
Please let me finish. When I this visitation last night, I decided to investigate the case thoroughly. I did so today, and I can assure you that Miss Rayner paid for a crime she did not commit.
What grounds do you have for saying that, Mr. Holmes?
The letters that were supposedly written to her were in the Grosnian language, and yet today Prince Stefano informed me that she could not appear in the theater here because she did not speak the language.
But those letters were sewed into her bodice, Holmes.
That's true, my dear fellow. And who was the only person who had the opportunity to do that? The same person who came to me 2 nights ago and succeeded in convincing me that Miss Rayner was guilty, her own dresser and supposed friend.
Are you suggesting that
I'm suggesting that you inherited her estate on her death, and that you would have lost that inheritance if she had married and had a family of her own.
What do you have to say in answer to that, Martha?
That I am among madmen. This talk of ghosts proves it.
Very well, then. Let the ghosts support my theories. Hand me the violin, will you, Watson, old fellow?
Oh, yes, of course.
Thank you. Now, turn down the gas light.
Right you are.
That's it. And listen.
Yes. Yes. That's her voice.
And that's her figure standing there in the moonlight, even though she's dead.
Now, what do you say, Martha? Aren't you responsible for her death? If a ghost can sing, I'm sure it can also talk.
I did do it. The letters belong to me. I sacrificed my own baby for gold. May heaven have mercy on my soul.
A confession in front of 4 witnesses. Why not take her away, Krasnodar? We'll testify later.
I will. Come with me, Martha.
I killed my own baby. I deserve to die.
Well, shall I turn up the gas, Holmes?
Ask Prince Stefano.
No. Do not turn it up. I've seen and heard the ghost of my beloved when the lights were down. I'm not afraid. Please play her melody again, Mr. Holmes.
Aren't you afraid, Prince Stefano?
Why should I be afraid? Lily, my beloved, your spirit I know can be no evil one. I love it. I love you living. The pleasure of love lasts but an instant. Love's regrets last for a lifetime. This is now my lifetime, brightened by your gracious ghost.
I'm sure this is a very touching scene, but it's getting dreadfully maudlin. All right, Miss Rayner. You may come from behind the tapestry now. Watson, old chap, turn up the gas light. There's a good fellow.
Right you are, Holmes.
Prince Stefano, permit me to reintroduce you to your far from ghostly fiancée, Miss Lily Rayner.
Lily, my beloved, you're not dead.
No, I am not dead. Though I cannot see how Sherlock Holmes fathomed my secret.
And there, my dear young lady, you're in exactly the same boat as I am.
Surely the answer is obvious. You gave me the key yourself, Prince Stefano.
I did, but how, Mr. Holmes?
When you informed me that Miss Rayner had once played the title role in Tosca.
Tosca? What's that got to do with anything,
Consider
Holmes?
the plot, Watson. A minister of police who is very susceptible to a lady's charms arranges a false execution. Knowing Mr. Krasnodar's weakness, Miss Rayner, you prevailed upon him to do likewise.
Well, then the whole execution was a piece of pantomime. The rifles must have contained blanks.
That's right, old fellow. And what should have heightened my suspicion, Miss Rayner, was the fact that at the moment of your apparent death, Mr. Krasnodar quoted a line from Tosca. He said, "What an artist." I was not perceptive enough at the time to evaluate the remark correctly, I'm afraid. When the simulated execution took place, you were free, but assumed dead.
But why should I indulge in such a trick, Mr. Holmes?
You reasoned that had you come to me directly, I might easily have turned you over as a fugitive from justice. And when you decided to dramatize the situation and appear last night as an apparent ghost, you knew it would, well, at the very least, stimulate my curiosity. It would cause me to investigate the matter and possibly to learn the truth and clear you from suspicion.
Well, yes, but Holmes, if she's innocent, how about the love letter in English, which was in the handwriting of Josip, the revolutionary leader?
Well, I can see only one explanation for that. You, Prince Stefano, are that mysterious revolutionary Josip.
Stefano? Oh, no, that is not possible.
Mr. Holmes, you're a visitor in my country. I do not suppose you will be staying here much longer.
Stefano, all these months you deceived me.
Silence, Lily. Gentlemen, I hope for your own sake you will not be staying here much longer.
Oh. I've been threatened by far more imposing adversaries than you, Prince Stefano. I suggest that you leave my room. It's none of my business dabbling in Grosnian political affairs. Your secret is safe. In any case, I came to Grozny for a holiday. Goodbye.
Goodbye, Mr. Holmes.
On my soul, Holmes, if we were in London, you wouldn't behave in this offhand way.
But we're in Grozny, old chap, aren't we? Hand me the violin, will you?
All right, here you are.
Thanks. You know, Watson, I've only had professional dealings with 2 singers in my life. The first was Irene Adler, and she fooled me, oh, so cleverly.
And this singer tried to fool you and failed dismally. Seems to me the score's about even.
No, old chap, no. This one was an amateur. Irene Adler will always be the woman. Ah, well, I think that's enough excitement for one day, don't you? After all, I am supposed to be taking a holiday.
Doctor, that was a swell story. And I'll bet that you were a lot more interested in the beautiful Lily than your story tonight would have us believe.
Well, of course I'm interested in a beautiful woman. But then what man isn't?
Check.
But don't worry about me, Mr. Bartell. You know, being a family man, I just naturally associate a beautiful woman and home. And that makes me think of hospitality.
Well, what do you mean by that?
Well, according to you, I'm interested in home life. You're primarily interested in wine. Put us together, and we're interested in...
Wine in the home.
Isn't that an important part of hospitality?
That I admit. But remember, my interest in wine is entirely an interest in good wine. In Petri wine, to be exact. Because I know all about Petri wine. I know that the Petri family has been making wine for generations. With the Petri family, the growing of perfect sun-ripened grapes and the art of turning those grapes into fragrant, delicious wine is a heritage. It's a heritage handed down from father to son, from father to son. The skills of those generations of winemaking are evident in every drop of Petri wine. The name Petri on a bottle of wine is more than a trademark. It's the personal assurance of the Petri family that Petri wine is always good wine. But you'll discover that for yourself. You'll learn that no matter what type wine you prefer, you'll like it better when it's a Petri wine. Because Petri took time to bring you good wine. Well, Dr. Watson, what new Sherlock Holmes adventure do you have lined up for us next week?
Next week, Mr. Bartell, I'm going to tell you a most unusual story. Sherlock Holmes crossed swords with a famous Frenchman and proved that although the English have been called a nation of shopkeepers, that a murder did not always prove to be a good bargain.
Tonight's Sherlock Holmes adventure was written by Dennis Green and Anthony Boucher and was suggested by an incident in the Sir Arthur Conan Doyle story, The Sussex Vampire. Music is by Dean Fossler. Mr. Rathbone appears through the courtesy of Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, and tonight Dr. Watson was played by Mr. Joe Kearns, who substituted for Mr. Nigel Bruce. Mr. Bruce is scheduled to return to the program next week. The Petri Wine Company of San Francisco, California, invites you to tune in again next week, same time, same station. Sherlock Holmes comes to you from our Hollywood studio. This is Harry Bartell saying goodnight for the Petri family. For a solid hour of exciting mystery dramas, listen every Monday on most of these same stations at 8 o'clock to Michael Shayne, followed immediately by Sherlock Holmes. This is the Mutual Broadcasting System.
JAR101. Broadcast permission for the following program is made possible by the Columbia Broadcasting System.
The CBS Radio Mystery Theater presents...
Come in. Welcome. I'm E.G. Marshall, bringing you, hopefully, an enjoyable shudder. Certainly, fans of the occult like the dark and dangerous tales we spin because of the vicarious enjoyment that comes from the delicious shivers of the supernatural. But let me issue a warning to all you ghost lovers. Do not, I repeat, do not ever make the mistake of thinking that ghosts are fun. Mrs. Mary Boyne and her husband did, and this tale tells what happened to them.
I stood at the library windows of the beautiful old house of Ling and peered out in the gathering dusk, and I saw a figure. For a moment, a shudder ran through me. I thought I'd spotted the elusive ghost of Ling, and when the figure entered the library, I gasped.
What's the trouble, Mary?
Would you believe it, Ned? I mistook you for our elusive ghost.
Oh, Mary. Mary, we've had a great marriage up till now, and my problems stem from America and not from any crazy old ghost. Oh. And if you'll forget the ghost, we'll all be a lot happier.
Our mystery drama, Afterward, was adapted from the Edith Wharton classic, especially for the Mystery Theater, by Murray Burnett, and stars Celeste Holm. I'll be back shortly with Act One. Remember the phrase, Kilroy was here, so popular back in the days of World War II? I feel certain most of you remember, but if we go back a few years farther, how many of you recall the phrase, the little man who wasn't there? What do all these phrases have to do with our tale? Well, stretching a point, we might say that our story concerns the ghost that wasn't there, or at least not when you expected him. If this sounds confusing, let's listen to the lady whose story it is.
My name is Mary Boyne. My address is Suite 357 in a Wood, Dorsetshire, England. Of course, I'm American and alone and sane. The reason I mention sanity is because they call this place a rest home, but actually it's a place for people who have money and who are supposed to be not quite right in the head. I told you I'm sane, but I must confess it's difficult to understand how I managed to retain my sanity after what happened. But you be the judge and jury. I'll start at the beginning, back in America, in the little town of Waukesha, and the little house where I lived happily with Ned. Ned, you're home early.
You bet. I'm not only home early, darling, but I'm home for good. I've sold the Blue Star Mine for $5 million.
Oh.
Mary, my love, are you all right?
Oh, yes, just fine, darling, but you're joking.
Never more serious. We're finished with drudgery, darling. Finished living in this house, in this town, and don't even bother to pack. Let's just make our dream come true today.
I know that Americans are often impulsive, generous, and even, forgive me, sometimes a trifle foolish. But I must say, Mr. and Mrs. Boyne, you are something new in my experience as a realtor.
Well, is that a nice English way of saying you don't have a suitable house for us?
Not at all, Mr. Boyne.
Oh, please forgive my husband, Mrs. Stair, but our search for a house in England is the answer to what both he and I have always considered an impossible dream. You see, I was born in England, and I went to America as a child, and I've always wanted to return, and now we can.
Is it so strange that we want a house we ourselves can remodel and modernize?
No, that's understandable. But to be so far from any means of transportation.
Perhaps I should say that Ned and I are really looking for two things: to get away from our old lifestyle in America and to find our roots.
Yes, I have a house that seems to be made to order for your specifications. It's been on the market for years because it needs so much remodeling, and it's 14 miles from the nearest rail station.
Great.
Let me finish. It was built in the time of the Tudors. Needs a tremendous amount of modernization, particularly in the matter of heating and hot water.
Sounds super to me. But how about a ghost, Mrs. Stair?
Oh, Dorsetshire full of ghosts.
That's nice. But I did so want one of my own, right on the premises.
Mrs. Boyne, you shouldn't ask for anything like that. There is a traditional ghost that goes along with the house. A particularly nasty ghost. Also a rather strange one.
Strange? How so?
Because the history of the ghost of your house at Ling is that no one knows that they've seen a ghost until long afterward.
Well, that's crazy.
What in the world makes a ghost, except for the fact that you know when you see it? It either moans or wears white shrouds or touches you with icy fingers.
Well, the only thing I can tell you is that there are stories about the ghost of Ling, and every single one of them is identical. The person who sees the ghost doesn't know it's a ghost until afterward.
Oh, forget it, Mary. No. Life is too short to enjoy a ghost. You've got to wait to find out if it's a real ghost or not. No, but this house at Ling seems to have so much else going for it. Darling, I think we really should take a look at it.
We went, we looked, and we were conquered. Both Ned and I fell instantly in love with Ling. It was a lovely old Tudor house, just as the agent had described it. Exactly what we both dreamed of, and it was definitely secluded. We bought it and moved in. But although I was in seventh heaven and up to my ears in planning for remodeling the old house, there was something definitely wrong with Ned.
Oh, these powders don't do a thing for my headaches.
Well, the doctor said...
I know what the doctor said, darling, and I followed his prescription, but I still have the headaches.
Darling,
Hmm?
do you think perhaps we've made a mistake about this house?
No, Ling is perfect. Perfect. We both knew it the moment we saw it. The gardens are a delight, and under your tender, loving care, grow more beautiful every day.
Oh, with Hilton's great help.
Nonsense. No, Hilton is a good gardener, darling, but he hasn't your green thumb. No, my love. The house is perfect, and there's absolutely nothing wrong. These headaches will go away in time.
So you're not going to tell me?
Dear heart, there is nothing to tell.
But I knew better. Something was very wrong, and I intended to find out what it was. Lydia Westlake was the village librarian and had been ever since the oldest inhabitant could remember.
Well, Mrs. Boyne, what a pleasure. Is there anything I can do for you?
Miss Westlake, I really must apologize for not coming to see you in this lovely old library before.
Oh, my dear, no apologies necessary. Everyone in town knows how busy you've been patching up Ling.
Well, that's one reason I'm here. To ask if you have any books about the history of Ling.
Ah, you mean about the architecture?
Not exactly. The whole, everything. Maybe even something about the ghost.
Well, I really shouldn't say this, but it's best for everyone to try to forget about the Ling ghost. Oh, believe me.
Oh, I believe you, Miss Westlake, but I'm still interested in everything about Ling.
Very well. You'll find some books on the history of Ling under G226.
There were 3 books. I took them all and went back to Ling and started to read. 2 incidents mentioned the Ling ghost, and they were absolutely horrifying. What I hadn't told the librarian was that I wanted to find out more about the ghost because of the way Ned was acting.
Who the devil is it?
Well, it's me, darling.
I'm sorry, Mary. It's just that I'm sorry.
Have the servants been interrupting you?
No. Oh, gosh, we've never kept secrets from each other. It's my consultation work with the Blue Star Mine back in the States.
But why in the world should that be so disturbing?
Well, there were some problems I hadn't expected.
But I've never seen you like this. Is there any chance we'll have to go back to America?
No. It's nothing like that. It's just that there's a troublemaker who's after me. Darling, tell me how you're coming with the house and your research on the ghost.
I don't want to hear anything more about that ghost.
Well, why this sudden about-face?
I just don't, that's all. Let's make a pact. You stop worrying, and I'll stop talking about the ghost. The pact didn't work. Oh, how I wish it had. Perhaps things would not have turned out the way they did. If we had left Ling and I had listened to my presentiment about the Ling ghost, Ned grew more irritable, and I ever more frightened.
What's the matter with those fools back in Waukesha? They can't handle the simplest matters without asking me a million questions.
Ned, why don't you give up the consulting job? We don't really need it. I mean, do we?
No, not the money, but in a way... Well, in a way, we do need it.
I don't understand.
Well, it's a complicated business, Mary, involving lawyers and a lot of legal matters that would only bore you.
Bore me? I'd rather be bored or sad or anything. If only I could see you more relaxed.
Well, you will, darling. It'll just take a little time.
Time for what?
Well, I have problems with the Blue Star. So, look, why don't you bring me up to date on your ghost, huh?
Oh, Ned, because I'm frightened. I read a story in one of those books I took from the library about the young wife of the son of the man who built Ling.
Uh-huh. And what about it?
Well, it seems she had fallen madly in love with one of the men here before she met the Ling son. And, oh, Ned, must I?
Well, please, darling. It can't be all that shocking now in this day and age.
Well, she disposed of an unwanted child and kept it a secret.
Oh?
Some years later, after she was happily married and had a little girl of her own, she was out strolling through these gardens one day when she met an absolutely enchanting young girl, just about her daughter's age. They all hit it off very well, and soon the three became friends. The only thing was that they couldn't ever figure out where this enchanting child lived or who were her parents. And this began to worry the young mistress of Ling, until one day her daughter disappeared and was never found or seen again.
Well, I don't understand.
Don't you? The mother did. She had seen the ghost of Ling, her daughter's little friend. The ghost was the illegitimate child she'd killed. Only she didn't know till afterward.
I'm sorry, Mary, for making you tell me that story.
It's all right. There's more in those old books. There's something about a secret staircase.
Oh?
I should be able to locate it. You get a marvelous bird's eye view of the entire country.
Well, that sounds like fun.
Why don't you help me search for it?
Can't. I have to work on my correspondence, but if and when you find it, give me a shout. I'll be in the library.
I set off on another exploration of Ling, but this time with a purpose. And finally, just like a heroine in some Gothic novel, I pressed a panel of the old wainscoting in one of the rooms, and it slid back, revealing a small circular flight of stairs leading upward. I climbed the tiny corkscrew staircase to the roof of Ling. Oh, the book hadn't exaggerated the beauty of the view. I called excitedly down the stairs, Ned! Ned! I found it, and it's beautiful. Come up here and see.
Wow. Oh, darling, this is really something. Why, you can see for miles. How did you find it?
Just followed the directions in the book. Went around pressing the paneling, and suddenly there it was, the staircase. Just look. Of course, I know you can see farther than I can.
Oh, but, darling, your eyes are more beautiful. Hello. Who's that?
Who? Where?
Well, can't you see that man coming towards the house? I've got to go down and see who it is.
Ned! Ned! Wait for me! There you are, darling. I've been looking all over for you.
Well, I've been right here in the library.
Well, you dashed off that roof and went running out the front door. Who was it?
Who was what?
The man you saw coming toward you in the garden.
Oh, that man. Well, you see, dear, I thought I saw the gardener, and I ran after him to tell him about some of the drains which need tending, but, you see, he'd disappeared before I reached him.
Disappeared?
Mm-hmm.
But he seemed to be walking so slowly and toward the house, not away from it.
Well, that's the way it seemed to me, too, but, I guess, we must have been wrong. Unless it could have been, the ghost.
Now, we all know there are no such things as ghosts, or at least some of us know. But one thing we would all agree upon is that If there really are ghosts, they won't go away even if you don't mention them. I'll be back shortly with more mention and more answers to the mysterious ghost of Ling. Institutions for the mentally ill have come a long way. They are quite beautiful and often look like an ideal retirement home, even on the inside where everyone wears a smile. It takes an expert to be able to see some of the anguish that lies behind the smile, like the pain that continually racks Mary Boyne.
None of the staff nor the guests at Innerwood Rest Home can understand why I hate to hear the sound of the postman's whistle when he comes with the mail. They think it's because I have no one who cares enough to write to me. Well, it's true that I have no one, but the reason I dread the postman's whistle is because if it weren't for the postman and the mail and... There I am, confusing you again. But it all relates to one arrival of the mail at Ling.
Oh, this is from old Joe Sitwell asking how we are, and this one's for you.
I'm so glad there are no letters to disturb you. What's this?
Let me see.
It's a newspaper clipping. Front page article from the Waukesha Sentinel.
Oh?
It says that a man named Elwell has brought a lawsuit against you. That there was something wrong about the Blue Star mine. I haven't read it all, but...
Darling, you wouldn't understand more than half of it, even if you finished.
Well, maybe not. But now I understand what it is that's been bothering
No,
you.
it's really nothing, darling.
Nothing? On the front page of the Sentinel? Ned, what's this all about?
Oh, now why don't we have some tea first?
This lawsuit isn't new to you.
No, of course not. I've known about it for some time.
Of course you have, and you've been having sleepless nights and headaches for some time. What does this man accuse you of?
Oh, pretty nearly everything he could dream up.
Why? Why would a man do that?
Oh, because he figures he can make some money.
But surely he must have some reason. There must be something he thinks you've done.
All right, darling, I'll tell you the whole story. Mary, dear, you must know that whenever a fortune is made overnight, there are always some envious people who believe they deserve a share of the windfall, and that's exactly what Elwell thinks.
Who is Elwell? I don't know that name.
Well, he's a man I put into the Blue Star. He made some money, and now he wants more.
How did you put him into it?
Well, he brought me the samples to be assayed, and, well, I told you about it at the time, but I didn't make a big deal out of it in case they proved to be worthless.
I think But if everything is the way you say, and you paid him...
Well, of course I paid him.
Well, then why does he sue you now?
Oh, well, probably because some lawyer got hold of him and talked him into it, hoping for a fat fee. Or maybe he thought I'd get scared. Now, Bob Elwell ought to have known me better than that.
I certainly agreed with that. Anyone did business with Ned would know he wasn't the sort to be frightened of anything. But there was no question that he was worried. And I was hardly surprised when he turned to me one night and said...
Darling, have you any idea how long it's supposed to be before you know whether or not you've seen the Ling ghost?
Why, no. None. Have you?
No, of course not.
It's rather an odd question to ask me, darling, unless you think you have seen the ghost.
Well, I really don't know why I asked the question. It just popped into my head, and so I asked it.
I know your engineer's mind, Ned. And I know how it worries and worries about a problem until you've solved it. Now, I want you to tell me something on your solemn word of honor. Promise.
Okay, my word of honor.
That you believe you have seen the Ling ghost and that you're trying to keep it from me, and that's what's worrying you?
Cross my heart, darling. I don't think I've seen the Ling ghost. At least, not to my knowledge, because according to the ancient tradition, one really doesn't know when he's seen the ghost.
And with that, I had to be satisfied. I knew my husband. There was no more to be gained from questioning him. But I thought to myself, maybe there was something to be gained from questioning the ghost. That is, if I could manage to locate the elusive spirit. Of course, I knew that you weren't supposed to be able to know you'd seen the ghost, but I was haunted by the idea of the disappearing figure we'd seen from the rooftop. So once again, I climbed the small secret stairway and stood on the roof ledge. I cupped my hands and shouted to the sky, "Oh, spirit, specter, shadow, whatever you choose to call yourself, we've done you no harm. We want to live here in peace. Oh, ghost of Ling, break with the past, break with tradition, and show yourself to me."
Mary, what on earth do you think you're doing?
That's obvious, isn't it, darling?
Well, if you mean you're making a darn fool of yourself, and incidentally of me, yes.
Well, I'm sorry if I was stupid.
It isn't stupidity, Mary. It's just this obsession of yours with a ghost. You're only adding to my worries.
I don't want that. You know I don't want that.
Well, then maybe we should leave Ling.
Oh, but I love this house, and so do you.
Well, but I think there's something else we have to do, and let's get right on with it.
Ned was just trying to help me, like the staff here at Innerwood. And he thought maybe by arranging a seance with a reputable and respected medium might put my mind at rest. Ned thought that perhaps the medium might be able to get through and reach the ghost.
Now, you both understand that as a man of integrity, I can promise you nothing.
Yes, Mr. Woods, you've already made that very clear.
It is difficult to overemphasize the possibility of failure.
Can we start, please?
Please be patient, Mrs. Boyne. All the research I have done on the ghost of Ling seems to bear out the tradition. He or she appears, and only afterwards do the people realize they have made contact with a ghost.
Yes, we know all that, but isn't it also true that there's never been an attempt to reach this ghost through a reputable medium?
That is so.
Well, that's why we came to you. I want to find out if there is a ghost of Ling, and if there is, you should be able to reach him.
I should, but as I said...
Please, let's not go through all that again. Let's hope you will succeed.
Right. Now, this is our first seance.
Well, I'm afraid it is very much like what you have read in books and heard about. We will keep this room dimly candlelit, just as it is now. And so, I ask you to join hands with me. That is it. Now, close your eyes and concentrate.
On what?
On the ghost.
But I want...
Just think of the ghost, Mrs. Boyne. If there is any communication, it must come through me.
Is that all? Is it over now?
It is over, yes.
Well, you said you might fail.
I did not fail.
But we didn't see or hear a thing. Did you, Ned?
Oh, nothing.
I pierced the veil. I reached my control.
Well, then what...
You said you thought I was an expert. And I believe I convinced you that I am not a fake.
Well, okay, but if you reach...
Let me assure you that there is no spirit, no ghost, happy or unhappy, inhabiting these premises at Ling.
Ned, tell me, did you believe Mr. Woods?
Well, darling, he's supposed to be the best, and he said there definitely wasn't any ghost at Ling.
Hey, something's happened to you.
What?
It's happened since the seance.
I don't know what you're talking about.
You're different.
Oh, come on, Mary.
Maybe something did happen at that seance.
What?
I mean, those drawn lines in your face have disappeared. Smiles come back into your eyes.
Oh.
You slept better last night. Come on, admit it.
All right, I admit that, but it has nothing to do with the seance.
Well, then what caused the change?
Well, perhaps it was a cable I received yesterday saying that I could probably expect some very good news about that Elwell suit very shortly.
Then it was the lawsuit that bothered you after all.
Yeah, well, yes, perhaps more than I knew. Well, at any rate, we'll find out with tomorrow's mail.
Has the mail come yet?
No, not yet, darling. Anyway, I thought you were going to be all taken up with that engineer from Dorsetshire who's going to show us how to install a hot water system.
Well, I'm looking forward to his visit, but I remember what you said about the mail.
Oh, there's the postman now, dear. Here, let me beat you to it, Mary.
We'll go together.
All right. Ah, here we are. Oh, airmail special from Waukesha.
What does it say? Open it.
All right. Ah, good news, darling.
You mean you've won? You've won the lawsuit?
Oh, the suit's been withdrawn, so there's nothing to worry about.
Then everything's all right.
Oh, couldn't be righter. No, how about giving me a kiss, and you go wait for that engineer?
One of the strangest things I remember was my total sense of security as Ned held me in his arms. I left Ned and walked out into the gardens. Oh, the day was beautiful. It seemed even brighter than it actually was because of the change in Ned. As I walked along the flagstones, I heard footsteps behind me. I stopped and turned.
I came to see Mr. Boyne.
I'm Mrs. Boyne. Do you have an appointment with my husband?
I think he expects me.
Well, he's working on a book, so he never sees anyone in the morning.
Oh.
Wait. You seem tired. Have you come a long way?
Yes, I have come a long way.
Well, then I suppose if you'll go to the house, my husband will see you. You'll find him in the library. It's that way. I watched the stranger enter the house, and then I went to find the gardener, and soon the engineer arrived. And the morning just sped by. We'd finished with the plans for the hot water system, and it was time for lunch. I went to the dining room, but Ned wasn't at the table. Nor was he in the library. I remember calling, and then asking the servants whether they'd seen him. But Ned was nowhere to be found. Not at the luncheon, not in the garden, not in the house. He didn't come back that afternoon, nor was he there for dinner. By that time, I was frantic and called the police. The local police shook their heads and called in Scotland Yard.
Now, Mrs. Bourne, I can only try to reassure you by telling you that we haven't found your husband's body.
Well, that's very reassuring, Inspector. You're telling me my husband has just disappeared into thin air, vanished without a trace?
Oh, no, Ma'am. What I'm trying to say is that if there was any foul play, and in these cases sometimes there is, we usually find the body of the dead man within 48 hours. So perhaps I was clumsy, but I was trying to tell you that there is hope that Mr. Boyne is alive.
Well, then where is he?
Oh, of course, I can't answer that question for you at this time. But I promise you, Mrs. Boyne, all the resources of Scotland Yard will be employed to find him for you.
I must admit the inspector kept his word and also kept my hopes alive. The Yard kept me up to date on every development. But alas, they were so pitifully few. They did nothing to nourish my hope that my darling Ned would soon come back to me.
All the resources of Scotland Yard, will they prove to be as ineffective as all the king's men and all the king's horses in putting Humpty Dumpty together again? Or will they come up with some strange and sinister solution to the disappearance of Ned Boyne? I'll be back with the answers shortly. The disappearance of husbands is usually regarded by most police as a mystery with fairly obvious solutions. Most commonly, the police look for the runaway mate who's been unable to cope with a nagging wife, or, secondarily, a woman who has decided to strike out looking for a new mate by disposing of the old one. Of course, neither of these theories was even entertained for a moment by Scotland Yard in the case of the disappearance of Ned Boyne.
Now, Mrs. Boyne, we all know what a good marriage you and Mr. Boyne had, but we're momentarily at a loss.
A man just doesn't vanish off the face of the earth.
Not without leaving clues. Something that will help us find him. Now, if you don't mind, we'll just go back once more over the way you found out he was gone.
I spent most of the morning with a Mr. Loomis, an engineer from Dorsetshire, going over some plans he had for installing a hot water
If you don't mind, I'd like to get to the stranger who asked for your husband.
Well, I've told you everything I know about him.
And told it well, Mum. A good description. Much better than we got from Nellie, the housemaid.
She saw him, too?
Oh, yes, indeed. We even found out that he wrote his name on a card he gave her.
Well, then you should know.
If I may, Mum, let me just condense the maid's testimony from my notes here. Now, she said that the gentleman was a stranger and perhaps a foreigner. He asked for Mr. Boyne, and she asked who was calling, and then he wrote his name on a piece of paper and asked her to carry it into your husband.
Well, didn't you ask her what Ned, my husband, said when she brought him the paper?
Well, Nellie told us your husband didn't have time to say anything, because just as she handed the paper to Mr. Boyne, she realized that the stranger had followed her into the library. She left them together.
If Nellie says that she left this stranger alone in the library with my husband, how can we be so sure that Ned left the house?
It isn't the maid's evidence we're going by, Mum. Hilton, the gardener, swears he saw your husband leave the house by the front door, accompanied by a gentleman. And he gives a description which pretty much tallies with yours and Nellie's.
But why? Why would Ned just go off like that without a word to me or to anyone?
You've already said your husband has been worried. So if you could give us some clue as to what it was that was bothering him.
Well, I've told you about that lawsuit back in America.
But you didn't tell us about the seance and your attempts to locate the Ling ghost.
Now, surely, Inspector, you're not going to tell me that Scotland Yard is taking ghost stories seriously.
Oh, no, Ma'am. But if Mr. Boyne did, it might be some explanation of his erratic behavior.
Are you telling me that you think my husband was mentally ill?
Well, now, Mum, we need something to explain a happily married, wealthy man walking off in the middle of the morning accompanied by a stranger, and so far leaving no trace.
But what about that unfinished letter you found in the library?
Obviously had to do with that business in America, which you, Mum, assured us wasn't bothering your husband one bit.
But he did write the word safer, didn't he? Who was Parvis?
Now we've checked, and Mr. Parvis is a perfectly respectable attorney back in Waukesha. And your husband's unfinished letter simply reads, "My dear Parvis, I have just received your letter announcing Elwell's death, and while I suppose there is now no farther risk of trouble, it might be safer..."
There. He says trouble, doesn't he?
Oh, he does indeed. And you believe that trouble could be so serious as to make him disappear without a word to you about it? Or the reason for leaving? Oh, no, we just can't believe that, Mrs. Boyne.
Then what do you believe? I mean, what has happened?
Mrs. Boyne, has your husband ever suffered from amnesia?
Never.
Does he have any medical history you could tell us about?
Ned was always healthy.
Well, England is a hard place to get lost in, Mum. It's almost impossible for two men to slip unnoticed through or out of the country.
How about just walking?
Mrs. Boyne, we have every official means of investigation working, and we've found nothing.
And so things remained at a stalemate for the next fortnight, despite the fact that my husband's name was headlined in every newspaper and his likeness looked down into my anguished eyes from the walls of every town and village. There was still not one single word of him, and no trace of his movements. And then one morning, Nellie brought a card to me in the library with the name Edward Parvis on it, and a new hope flooded my heart.
Mrs. Boyne?
Mr. Parvis, from Waukesha. You're the attorney my husband wrote to.
Yes, I found myself here in England, and I thought I should visit you.
Oh, I'm so glad you did. You've heard, of course, of my husband's disappearance, and I'm hoping that you've come to shed some light on it.
Well, I'm afraid you're in for a disappointment. My errand is of quite a different nature.
But his last unfinished letter was to you. I mean, surely...
Mrs. Boyne, is it possible you're unaware of what went on back at Waukesha?
Oh, my husband and I were very close. We had no secrets from each other.
Well, I'm wondering what you mean to do about Bob Elwell's family.
Bob Elwell's family? I'm completely confused. I don't know them. Mr. Parvis, you must bear with me. I do need your help.
and I'm almost beginning to believe you. First of all, Bob Elwell is dead. His wife's a proud woman, and she fought on as long as she could. It's come out now how badly off the family is, and we're taking up a fund for her.
Elwell. Wait. That was the man Ned told me had helped him with the Blue Star.
That's what he told you, is it?
Well, it's true, isn't it?
Well, it's true, and yet well, all I can say is that it was business.
I don't understand at all.
Bob Elwell just wasn't smart enough, let's put it that way. It's the kind of thing that happens every day in business.
Mr. Parvis, I think you're trying to tell me nicely that my husband did something dishonorable.
I don't want you getting the wrong idea about Ned. He committed no crime.
What exactly did he do?
He went into business with Bob Elwell, and Bob should have been more careful about what he signed.
Why don't you come right out and say that Bob Elwell should never have trusted Ned?
Well, it was Elwell's claim that he came to Ned with the first samples from the Blue Star. You see, the Blue Star had been started and then abandoned. And Elwell believed there was a chance the previous owners had quit too soon.
But he came to my husband with this sample.
That's right. And your husband assayed. They both wanted to keep the whole thing quiet because if there was any chance the Blue Star was still worth something, well, I don't have to tell you what that would have meant.
And Ned decided that the Blue Star was still a gold mine.
Right. Your husband and Elwell had to buy the Blue Star.
They bought it together?
They did. Elwell borrowed most of the money he put up to purchase the mine.
Well, so far that all seems pretty straightforward.
Uh-huh. Ned had the papers drawn up, and Elwell, well, he should have read them more carefully.
Why? What did the papers say?
That after Elwell had been paid back for the money he'd invested and received a profit of 5%, the entire ownership of the Blue Star reverted to Ned.
Oh, no.
Well, it was business, Mrs. Boyne. Elwell didn't have to sign it.
Well, evidently his lawyers felt that there was some merit to his claim when he sued Ned recently.
Well, they soon found out they didn't have a leg to stand on.
But if Elwell was so badly off, where did he find the money to hire lawyers?
A lot of people thought Elwell had been treated badly, and his lawyer was one of them.
You mean they took the case for nothing?
On a contingency basis. But when they saw they didn't have a case, they advised Elwell to withdraw the suit. Elwell became despondent and shot himself.
Shot himself? He killed himself because of that?
Well, he didn't kill himself exactly. He dragged on 2 months before he died.
And he tried to kill himself and failed? And then tried again?
No. He didn't have to try again. Well, the newspapers got hold of it, and it's all been raked up again, and this collection thing's been started. You know, most of us back in Waukesha liked Bob Elwell. Here's an account of the whole thing from the Sentinel. Maybe it would help you if you looked it over.
From the headline, it would seem the Sentinel knows who's to blame. Widow of Ned Boyne's victim, forced to appeal for aid.
And I thought maybe you might care to...
This picture! This picture! It says this is Robert Elwell.
Yes, it is.
But this is the man who came for my husband. I mean, I'd know him anywhere.
Mrs. Boyne, I don't think you're very well. Shall I call somebody?
No, this is Robert Elwell. This is the man who spoke to me in the garden.
That can't be the man. It's Robert Elwell.
It was Robert Elwell who came for him.
Came for Ned? Elwell was dead. You know that now, don't you?
Robert Elwell came for him.
Now, Mrs. Boyne, well, surely you remember your husband's unfinished letter to me. It was written after he'd heard of Elwell's death.
Robert Elwell was the man who spoke to me.
That's impossible.
You think I'm mad? I'm not. I'm quite sane. Will you answer me one question, please? When did Robert Elwell try to kill himself?
When?
Yes, the date. Please try to remember.
I don't think we should continue this conversation, Mrs. Bond.
I have a reason for asking.
I'm sure you have, but... Well, I really can't remember. I'd guess about 2 months before he actually died.
I need the exact date.
We might find it in the paper here. Yes, here it is. Last October.
The 20th, wasn't it?
Yeah, the 20th. Then you did know about Elwell all the time.
I know now. Sunday, the 20th. That was the day he came here first.
Came here first?
Yes.
You saw him twice then?
Yes, twice. First on the 20th of October. I remember because that was the day I first discovered the secret staircase, and we saw him from the roof. He was dressed just as he is in the picture in the newspaper. My husband saw him first. He was frightened and ran down ahead of me, but there was no one there. He had vanished.
You say Elwell vanished?
Yes. I see now what happened. He tried to come then, but he wasn't really dead. He couldn't reach us. He had to wait 2 months to die, and then he came back again, and Ned went with him. Oh, good Lord. I sent him to Ned. I told him where to go. I sent him to this room.
That's what they say about the Ling ghost. One never really knows that he's seen the ghost till afterward. Long afterward.
All the doctors at the rest home where they're treating Mrs. Mary Boyne are convinced that she's suffering from an almost historic sense of loss and bereavement because of the inexplicable disappearance of her husband. They're also all convinced that if only they could furnish her with a satisfactory explanation of that disappearance, she would be cured. But of course, we know better. At least, we who believe know that it's the explanation rather than the disappearance that's the root of her trouble. I'll be back in a moment. And now, the shortest ghost story in the world. The long, dark, memory-filled corridors of one of the great art museums of the world just before closing time. A man hastens to the exit. He's joined by another art lover. The first man says, "Hey, it's pretty spooky around here at this hour." "Yes," says the second man. "Do you believe in ghosts?" "No," says the first man. "Do you?" "Yes," replies the second, and vanishes. Our cast included Celeste Holm, Larry Haynes, Joan Shea, Guy Sorrell, and Ian Martin. The entire production was under the direction of Hyman Brown. This is E.G. Marshall inviting you to return to our Mystery Theater for another adventure in the macabre. Until next time, pleasant dreams.